Hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. It's all it is. It's just a pre-show. It's not the show. It's the pre-show. It's the getting set up part of the show. Oh, and it's broadcasting in my YouTube, and I got to shut my YouTube window. There we go. Just making sure we're all set and ready to fly over here. So let's get it moving. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to the chat room. Those of you who are here, those of you on the radio station, you're not going to hear any of this. You won't hear it until we go live. So get that set up. Bing, bang, boom. I set that so I can watch the timer. The other day we were talking, we ran right through the end of the radio show over on the radio station. So, oh man, my lights are still kind of wonky. They're going to be wonky till I get the good lights up. That's all. Hail Scotty, says Barbie Day. Hail Barbara. Ryan Gale. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Philip Blair, good to see you. Uncle Dave Potter is here, as well as Delaney Pearl Jones. She is here. Morgan Snow, good to see you. And Susie Q. Yo to you, Susie Q. And let's see. Who else we got in here so far? Ryan Gale, Morgan Snow, Susie Q, Philip Blair, David Potter, Pearl Jones, blah, blah, blah. So far, so good. Grumpy Stack is here. And we've got 1 minute left now until we go live on the radio station. So everybody enjoy the 1 minute of free time here where we're doing nothing. So good evening to everybody who's here. No, this is not pre-recorded tonight. It's live. Sean Vest. Good to see you, Sean. I am an emerald eagle, he says. Oh! I don't know what an emerald eagle is, brother. I got to tell you. I got to be honest. So, but congrats for being an emerald eagle. Okay, guys, we got about, 20 seconds and we go live on the radio station. So I'm going to go dark, as we always do. Sit tight. I'll be right back with the beginning of the show.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, good evening, folks. Welcome. It's Wednesday evening. Hope you had a good Wednesday today. Happy Wednesday, by the way. And this is me, your host, Scotty Roberts, right here on this, my radio show, the Intrepid radio program, broadcasting live in audio format only over on subspace.radio. And if you're listening over on the radio, you can catch the visual via several YouTube or several Facebook channels. Mine included, Subspace Radio included, Intrepid Radio over there on Facebook. Or you can come on over to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And over there you can see and join the Intrepid family. There's a whole bunch of people chatting already. Jeff Adamson is here. Good to see you, Jeff. And tonight we're going to cover a topic which is being covered all over the news. It's been all over. You might be tired of hearing of it already, but I'm not, because it's not a done thing yet. We started talking about this a little bit on Monday, and you've got to ask the question, when are you the most like Joseph Stalin? Now, I'm trusting that many of you know enough history to know who Joseph Stalin was. You're never more like Joseph Stalin than when you seek out the people that you are opposed to and find crimes to fit them and then promptly execute them. So that's when you're never more like Joseph Stalin. So tonight we're going to dig into this a little bit more than we did on Monday, because this is a daily thing that is constantly evolving. And I want to jump right into it because I got all kinds of material. And this isn't all original with me. Some of it is my original thinking. Some of it is I have articles that are called up. Some of it I have detailed facts in my notes. And so some of it I read, some of it I just recite, some of it's by rote, some of it's because I know stuff. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So the first thing I want to look at is there's some things that could derail this whole indictment thing that's going on right now. And now, what's interesting to me is that for all the hype about this and all the people I see that are putting out memes or comments on social media, yes, Trump is finally being indicted, someone said. And I'm like, do you really understand what's going on in the political world out there? Do you understand? He's not being indicted because he did something wrong. And if there's any wrong to it at all, it doesn't measure up to many of the other things that are not being indicted out there. He's being indicted for political purposes. That's the simplest way to put it. And we're going to dig into that a bit and why those politics are the things that may just suddenly have a turn of events here that's going to derail Trump's indictment. And this is all as of today. Yeah, a little bit yesterday and today. And the Manhattan DA, Bragg, is determined to, as one headline put it, to snooker a grand jury into indicting Trump. And this is from an article by Greg Jarrett, if you know Greg Jarrett. And he's a great commentator over on Fox. And somebody will say, oh, that figures. You're just getting your facts from Fox. Well, you know what? I'm getting my facts from a journalist, somebody that maybe has a bias of his own, but somebody who also looks at facts, and somebody who will not shy away from taking, say, a conservative and taking them to task if he believes that they deserve it. So this is going to be some interesting information. Philip Blair just said in the chat room, Putin keeps saying Joseph Stalin was a good man and a great leader. Of course he does. More poop from Putin. Poo from Putin? There you go. So the House Judiciary Committee, they probe the Manhattan DA over this potential Trump indictment. And senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram reports the latest on the GOP efforts from Capitol Hill. And so we're going to talk about a little bit here. Here's the exact quote, by the way, from Lavrentiy Beria. And he was Joseph Stalin's head of his secret police. He said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. Meaning, show me the man and I will find a crime that fits him. And his modus operandi was to target any man that the Soviet dictator, Joseph Stalin, chose, and then find or fabricate a crime against him. And with a dictator like that, you would think he wouldn't need a reason, but they always tried to legitimize their false reasons for taking people out. And I'm saying right now, you're never more like a Lavrentiy Beria. And I know how to pronounce the name. It's just saying the two words together get clunky. Lavrentiy Beria. And he was the head of the secret police under Joseph Stalin. And Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has taken a page out of Stalin's handbook, the playbook, and he targeted Donald Trump. And he's driven by personal and political animus. And the DA presumed the former president must be guilty of something. And it was just a matter of devoting enough time and resources to hunt down the crime. And so, failing to find one, guess what happened? Bragg copied Beria's paradigm and simply dreamed one up. He found a crime to fit. And the DA invented his case against Trump by taking an alleged misdemeanor business records violation and supercharging it into a felony by citing an imagined second crime arising out of a supposed campaign finance operation violation. And the novelty of such a charge is exceeded only by its absolute unmitigated absurdity. Now, do you know what this stuff is all about, folks? Most of you who listen to this show have a pretty good idea of what's going on out there. And do we have a bias? Yeah. My bias is certainly for the man that they want to charge, but it is also toward common sense. It's also toward making sure that this country runs the way it's supposed to run. And when you start politicizing accusations like this and indictments like this for the purpose of taking out opponents, that is where it falls outside of what is supposed to be commonplace for our country or normal modes of practice. Right now, what you're seeing right now is the result of the left severely afraid that Trump is going to run. They're trying to find any way they can to take him out of the equation. If it's as simple as this violation they're talking about, which we're going to talk about tonight in a little more detail so you understand it, or if it's trying to impeach him, which they tried. Did you know this? I've said it on this show before. 9 times they tried to impeach Trump before they did, and then the Senate vacated it. So I had a meme I put up at the time. He says, it shows Trump sitting in a chair in his office, and he says, and he's kind of grinning. He says, it says, I don't always get impeached, but when I do, I don't get impeached. And so now let me preface this with something. You may not like Donald Trump personally. You may not like his personality. You may not like his style. Like today, there was something, I wish I could play it for you, and I don't have a video clip of it, but Trump saying in his speech, he's talking about Alvin Bragg, the DA in Manhattan. He talks about the fat Alvin Bragg, and he goes on and on about him being fat, and now he has to wear a circus tent for a suit coat, and all the food, they were going to serve food at this thing, but it's all gone because Alvin Bragg entered the room, and so on and so on and so on. That's Trump's style. That's what he does. Now, you may not like that. I like that in some comedians I watch. I like Donald Trump because he can do that kind of thing. Now, would he be my best buddy? I don't know. I don't know if I could handle, numbers of hours with Donald Trump. Then again, I just might. There's some people that don't like him because they don't like his personality. Well, you know what? This isn't about personality. This is about a rule of law. It's not about personality. But what the left has to do is try to take the personality out. They have to demonize him and try to prevent him from being able to run. Why would anybody want to do that to a political opponent? Why would you, if you were running for office, would you want to make sure that you find any way possible to prevent the person that's running against you, that has the greatest numbers for running against you and the greatest possibility of beating you? Why would you want to take them out? Well, it's so you don't have any opposition in the way. And so what you've got going on right now is not the left in charge of wanting to make sure that justice is really carried out or that the right thing is done. You're seeing a political game being played. Now, I'm going to have my naysayers out there that are saying they all play political games. Sure, they do. We know that. But you got to look to the people who work their hardest to try to prevent the political game from being played and have justice done. The indictment that Bragg brought appears to hinge on the DA's argument that the 2016, now what is that? How many years ago? That's 6 years or 7 years ago. The payment made to porn star Stormy Daniels was intended to help Trump's presidential bid and should have been accounted for as a campaign contribution, not as legal fees, as Trump listed them. And when he reimbursed his then lawyer, Michael Cohen, who paid Daniels to keep her mouth shut about a purported 2006 affair that Trump vigorously denies. Are you confused yet? You should be. The flaw in Bragg's tortured logic is twofold. First, non-disclosure agreements in exchange for money are perfectly legal. Second, Cohen long ago stated that the payment had nothing to do with the campaign, but was made to protect Melania Trump from an embarrassing, albeit false, accusation. And as such, it's not an illegal campaign donation under the law. Hence, there's no crime. Jeff Adamson asks a question I'm going to address here tonight. Why wasn't Hillary Clinton indicted or Eric Holder? Well, the easy answer, as you know as well as I do, Jeff, is because they're Democrats. That's why they weren't indicted. And I saw a nice little video piece by Bill O'Reilly, whether you like him or not. He talked about this, and he said, I'm bringing up Hillary Clinton not as a whataboutism, which people, that's just a whataboutism. No, it isn't. It's a fair comparison. Why was a former president, why is he possibly being indicted, and all this effort being put in to find a crime to indict him on? Why is this being done when somebody like a Hillary Clinton, who used campaign finance money to buy what she knew was a false dossier, the Steele dossier, why hasn't that ever been prosecuted? That is a good question. Mostly because these things kind of aren't done at those levels. You leave them be. It's what they are. That's kind of the going nomenclature for these things, unless it's your opponent that you're trying to take out. So I have a letter here. Let me go find it. I sent it to myself so I could bring it into tonight's show. Let's see. It's over here in the way my phone works. When I see something on my phone, I got to send something to, well, it didn't send. So that's no good. But it was a letter from Michael Cohen's lawyer that was stating, and it was from 2016, where Michael Cohen stated under oath, and so now he's a liar, now we know that, but his own lawyer wrote a letter saying that Michael Cohen that is in no way indemnifying Donald Trump for whatever this payment was, that it was his own, he did that of his own, what's the word I'm looking for? It was his own choice to do that because as the attorney, he was there to protect Trump. And so he went out and he paid Stormy Daniels what she was looking for. And that Trump had no idea that that payment was even made. And he stated that he did that to protect Melania in this letter from his attorney. So let me find my place where I kind of left off here on derailing Trump or derailing this indictment. So it was all, it was not an illegal campaign donation under the law. Hence, there is no crime that fits what Bragg is trying to take Trump down for. And so it was something that Michael Cohen intended to do. That's kind of the first point in this, kind of a base point in all of this. And then you can start looking at all the details beyond that. And you've got, it appears that Bragg's star witness in this whole indictment thing is none other than Michael Cohen, who's performed an astonishing pirouette by recanting his earlier statements. He's now coming and saying, oh, I didn't mean any of that. I lied when I said all of that. He now claims that the money was intended to help Trump's campaign fend off a damaging story. And so reliance on such a disreputable character as Cohen is a clear sign of the DA's desperation. Cohen is a known liar. Cohen has been spending time in prison. Cohen now comes out and says, everything I said about Trump that marked Trump as being free and clear, that was all a lie. And so this is Bragg's star witness. And he's carved out a career of trashing Donald Trump, his former boss. And Cohen has always had a warped relationship with the truth. He peddled so many lies that there's no way to know whether the disgraced and disbarred lawyer even understands the concept of honesty. And among the smorgasbord of crimes that sent him to prison, one of them was lying to Congress, perjuring himself to Congress. And now, in a sudden turn of events, Cohen's former attorney, Robert Costello, no longer bound by the attorney-client privilege that was waived by his ex-client, Michael Cohen, testified before the grand jury 2 days ago on Monday. And according to Costello, in April of 2018, Cohen repeatedly stated that the Daniels payment, Stormy Daniels, was intended to protect the candidate's wife, not the campaign. Moreover, Cohen insisted that he acted all on his own and not on the behest of Trump. While testifying for over 2 hours, Costello, the former attorney of Michael Cohen, he said he realized that Bragg had been hiding from the grand jury nearly all of the files he had previously turned over to the DA that corroborated Cohen's original story. This is what Costello told the grand jury, who has to make a decision on whether or not to indict. So Costello came out and said, Bragg's keeping information from you. Now, concealing exculpatory evidence from a grand jury is, in a simple word, reprehensible conduct. But because the DA Bragg is hell-bent on fitting a crime to the man, what's he doing? He's hiding information. That's reprehensible. Why would you do that? If you're seeking truth, why would you do that? If you're seeking truth, DA Bragg, why are you hiding the facts? Because they don't fit your case that you wanted to make? Isn't that where a person of integrity says, "Oh, we're gonna withdraw these charges because there's nothing to them"? We have found, by means of the evidence at hand, that there's nothing to them. But that's not what Bragg is doing. So was Cohen lying? Michael Cohen, was he lying at the outset of the investigation, or is he lying now? That's what the grand jury has to decide. I doubt Michael Cohen even knows for sure. Inveterate liars tend to lose track of their lies. Now, Bragg's determination to kind of hook, line, and sinker a grand jury into indicting Trump is an egregious abuse of governmental authority. It constitutes the weaponization of the law for political gain. Now, let me ask you, whether he did it or didn't do it, whether whatever, take those two crimes. Paying off a porn star to protect your wife or your campaign, or weaponizing the law for political gain. Compare those two for a second. But it's also, and even more importantly, it's a selective prosecution of the worst kind in our country and in our system of jurisprudence. Consider the case. Here we go, Jeff Adamson. You brought this up. Consider the case of Hillary Clinton, who secretly funded the anti-Trump dossier, the Steele dossier, in 2016 by deploying campaign lawyers to pay ex-British spy Christopher Steele more than $1 million to compose his phony document. Now, there's $1 million as opposed to the $130,000 given to Stormy Daniels. Just make some comparisons here, that's all. So, and let me repeat that, by the way. The case of Hillary Clinton, who secretly funded the anti-Trump Steele dossier in 2016 by deploying her campaign lawyers, to pay out of campaign funds ex-British spy Christopher Steele, more than $1 million to compose his phony document, the Steele dossier. Now, candidate Clinton listed it as a legal expense, even though its sole purpose was to advance her campaign against Trump. This is where all the Russian collusion bullshit came from, the Steele dossier. And so the Federal Election Commission fined Clinton for brazenly violating campaign finance laws. They fined her, but they did not indict her on anything. But New York prosecutors never even thought about bringing criminal charges because it involved, well, Hillary Clinton. She has consistently been the beneficiary of a dual system of justice in this country that grants her a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card for whatever crooked scheme she concocts. And by the way, think of all the money that was poured into the Russian collusion thing, Robert Mueller, all the money involved in trying to take Trump down for that. We find out it was all based on a fabricated dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton out of her campaign. Now, she was never prosecuted for obvious crimes under the Espionage Act by storing classified records in her home on a personal server. She also destroyed more than 30,000 documents under congressional subpoena. They had been subpoenaed. She destroyed them after being subpoenaed. But no obstruction of justice indictment was ever rendered against her. Why is that? Why is that? Now, juxtapose the treatment of Donald Trump. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Bragg's office, has devoted unlimited resources over many years, scouring every aspect of the former president's personal life and his business affairs in a purely partisan quest to find a crime. Any crime. Show me the man, I'll find you the crime. They did it because they could, with no compunction over the code of ethics that binds lawyers. Despite the objections of senior experienced prosecutors, the district attorney conjured up a convoluted legal theory to slay his political hobgoblin. It's all the earmarks of a Stalin-like fabrication. Folks, if you vote for these people, this mindset that is currently in the White House, I don't hate you as a person, but you know what? You're a non-thinking person, or you're swallowing the hook, the line, and the sinker. Do not, I'm going to make this statement to you, do not be more dedicated and loyal to a political party than you are to what is right, to what is true, and to what is just. And I would add to what has common sense. Come on. If you've got a half a brain, you know that that's what these people are doing. Now, you can bring out all your arguments if you want against the other side. Well, the other side does this and this. I don't care. That's not what this is about. This is about a travesty of justice attempting to be made for the purpose of politicizing and taking out political opponents. Now, much of the current witch hunt was driven and directed by former Assistant DA Mark Pomerantz. Now, he's an outsider who was hired for the sole purpose by Bragg of getting Trump, quote unquote. When Bragg initially balked at bringing charges, Pomerantz quit in a fit of pique, but not before blasting his former boss in a resignation screed conveniently made public. He then ratcheted up the pressure on Bragg by penning a disgraceful tell-all book. And in it, Pomerantz arrogantly laid bare his contempt of Trump because, quote, he posed a real danger to the country and to the ideals that mattered to me, end quote. That's Pomerantz. Now, that confessional exposed the underlying rationale for charging Trump. The district attorney, Bragg, soon caved into this and he fully embraced this whole loony legal theory promoted by Pomerantz. So disagreeing with someone's political views or harboring personal animosity is not a basis for criminal prosecution. I'm going to remind you again. Now this is something that has been a tag at the end of my emails and my Gmail account. You set up your tag at the end, your signature, so on. And in there, I have this quote by John Adams. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. John Adams. So basically what he's saying is it doesn't give a good goddamn what you think or what your feelings are about somebody or something. If the facts and the evidence do not support your case, then you have no case. So let's go on with this because I got a lot more material, and it's already 9:30. So so disagreeing with somebody's political views or harboring a personal animosity, dislike, distaste, unsavoriness against somebody is not a basis for criminal prosecution. It's a serious breach of legal ethics, as a matter of fact. If you harbor that stuff, how many defense attorneys do you think know their client is guilty as hell, but they are bound to defend them by law, and so they defend them? Might be some people don't like that, but everybody, because of our system of jurisprudence, is allowed a defense. And I guarantee you there's a lot of, not unethical, but there's a lot of attorneys out there who take on cases who are bound to those cases to do their job. So it's the duty of a prosecutor on the other side to see that justice is done, not to target an individual and contort the law to bring a feckless case against him. Pomerantz should face disbarment for his unconscionable conduct. And now the district attorney's prejudicial pursuit of Trump undermines the vital concept that the administration of justice will be fair and will be equitable. He's forsaken the presumption of innocence embodied in the 5th, the 6th, and the 14th Amendments to our Constitution. When it comes to Trump, though, the DA only operates on a presumption of guilt. So Alvin Bragg has chosen to criminalize politics with the zeal of, we mentioned him at the beginning, the notorious Lavrentiy Beria, the head of the state police for Joseph Stalin. And in the process, he has badly damaged the public's trust and sullied the sacred principle of equal justice under the law. Now, let me be very clear here. You can dislike Trump all you want. You may never want to vote for Trump. That's okay. That's your choice. That is your conscience. But I will say, whenever you have that kind of scorn for an individual, you better be well documented. You better know what you're talking about. If you're talking about feelings, the way this guy makes me feel, you're not dealing with facts. If you think Trump should be indicted over this, do you really understand why you're saying that? Do you understand what the meaning of that is? Do you understand what the facts of the case are? That's why I think Trump isn't afraid of it. You know? I'm glad he's not talking to me, said Elderberry. You're welcome. Grumpy Stack says over in the chat room, yeah, just look at the billions sent to Ukraine that has found its way back to our politicians on both sides. That's unethical. At best, it's unethical. At worst, it's criminal. Beth Kirkham says Kevin McCarthy stating he will charge certain committees, charge certain committees to investigate the New York prosecutor is asinine. They have no jurisdiction. They do if that prosecutor is claiming that there is a violation of federal law, which is what he's doing when he's trying to indict a former sitting president for a violation of a federal law. That puts him open, fair game to the legislators. Beth, I will have to say that, not just to disagree with you, but Kevin McCarthy's right. If Bragg is doing this for political purposes, under the guise of federal law, legal violations, Bragg's opening himself up to federal investigation. It's that easy. So let the system work. Yeah, I think let the system work. But would you say that in any other case? It was you or a family member of yours that you knew was being accused of something that wasn't so, and they're trying to take him down for political purposes. Would you say, oh, just let the system work? Leave it be. The system will work. Part of the system is revealing the fact that District Attorney Bragg has violated a federal code. Not federal code. How am I trying to say that? That he's trying to indict Trump on a federal law that isn't so. And he's playing a political game with the legal system for the sake of politics. Letting that system work is letting him get thrown to the lions for what he's doing. He needs to be investigated. You need to look at his background. You do know also, and some people will roll their eyes because they don't like hearing this, not because it isn't true, it's because they don't like hearing this, but some people will roll their eyes because when I say, and District Attorney Bragg, his whole campaign was funded by the man you hate hearing about, George Soros. Whoa, excuse me. Sneeze on air. George Soros funded the Bragg campaign. It tells you a little bit right there. You look into who George Soros is and what he's all about and what his goals are with who he funds, and you get an idea of that. So, Beth, don't go away or don't get mad. I'm not singling you out as much as the argument you present, because the argument is just not. It doesn't work. There has to be, if the candidate or if candidate Trump now for the 2024, if it is found that this indictment is being done in a way to try to remove him as being opposition to whoever's going to run, I'm assuming they're just going to run Joe Biden again, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he's done. Joe Biden hasn't done anything. It's the entire administration behind him that is the ruling party. That should scare you all by itself. That you don't have a leader who's making decisions. You have a leader who is a mouthpiece for an administration. So anyway, moving on from that. You spelled dementia wrong, Dave Potter. It's his mind is shh, Professor Bauer, his mind, click, click. Uncle Dave said, if they set a policy by going after Trump and convicting him, then it's open season on every congressman that's done insider trading, and every other law that they've broken. Yeah, it is. So if you're going to go after Trump with, pardon the pun, trumped up charges, you're opening the door and setting a precedent for everybody else. So, you know what I think right away off the top of my head? I think that the Democrats, you've even got Democrats that are backing away from this Bragg indictment issue. Why? Because they don't want to be part of that. They already know it's going to backfire in a big way. Chad Prather, if you know who Chad Prather is, he said on his show yesterday morning or the morning before, he said something to the effect that he said, you indict Trump on this, you are going to set off a patriot nuclear holocaust. Now, you got guys like Don Bongino and others that are saying, even Trump has said, protest this. do it peaceably. But I almost secretly wonder if the left, because of the way they have clung on to their January 6th bullshit, that the left would love nothing more than to see rightists, conservatives, or pro-Trumpers riot and do the kinds of things BLM did. They would love to see them do that over this. So everybody's saying, keep your heads. Protest, but don't do what they're trying to bait you into doing. So, and you know, Trump is also, the thing on Trump on this is that he's working to use this looming indictment as a 2024 campaign advantage over DeSantis and other rivals. Now, I will tell you this. We got DeSantis running. Well, he's going to run. He hasn't declared yet. You know he's going to run. The signs are too strong. For him to back out now would be surprising, to not run. I like DeSantis. I like him a lot. I'd vote for him in a heartbeat. You throw him up there against Trump, I would have a tough time deciding. A lot of other factors would have to go in, but that's all going to be decided by the not the preliminaries, slipping on the word. You know what I mean? The preliminaries. That doesn't feel like that's the right word for some reason. Oh well, go with it. Primaries, dude. Whoa, there it is. The primaries. That's going to be decided before the primary. By the time the primaries are over, anyway. Then somebody would have to decide if the right picks one of those two. The other guy's going to have to decide to go with it or move on. Sean Strike. We'll just reward rioters like in Philly. There it is. Let's see. Yeah. Agreed, Uncle Dave. When I say every politician, Republican or Democrat, you break the law, you should pay the price. Now, the big question is, did Trump break the law here? According to the people closest to him, no, he didn't. But it's being used now because the star witness who said he lied to Congress, the one who went to prison in part for lying to Congress, is now saying, well, I lied when I said he didn't lie, or when he didn't do that. So, and now, former President Trump predicted earlier that the indictment will probably enhance my numbers. That was his claim. And he's using the potential indictment from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as a gift to his campaign, at least in the short term. And the former president and his team of allies are employing a full court press to make the most of the potential indictment from Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg for Trump's alleged involvement in hush money. By the way, it is alleged, folks, whether you believe he did it or not. That's the way our system works. Let's get it straight. So, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg for Trump's alleged involvement in hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels in 2016 to keep her quiet ahead of that year's election over her claims that she had sexual encounters years earlier, which was 10 years earlier than that. So Trump and his allies in social media postings and media comments have been using the looming indictment to rally the MAGA base around the former president and to juice the grassroots funding. Now, Taylor Budowich, however you want to say it, Trump's former spokesman, who now heads up MAGA Inc., the top super PAC supporting the former president's 2024 White House campaign, told Fox News that an indictment would break open the political floodgates and deliver support and campaign contributions like we've never seen before. Now, news of this, the day that Trump announced it, they took in a record in donations, over $1 million overnight. something like that. It was crazy. So the Manhattan DA, by the way, Alvin Bragg, he's doubling down. He says, "We will not be intimidated." Well, maybe you should be intimidated. And for months, Trump has dismissed the idea that an indictment would hurt him, even as he railed against the potential charges from several legal investigations into him, many of them revolving around January 6th. He said, "I wouldn't even think about leaving," said Trump. "Probably it will enhance my numbers." And he declared that earlier this month ahead of his speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference, the CPAC, when asked by reporters of a possible indictment. Now, public opinion polling appears to back up this claim, suggesting that the former president received a boost among Republican voters last year after the FBI's search for classified documents at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, which, remember, Joe Biden declared as being unconscionable. And what were the words he exactly used, Biden, about Trump? He didn't say stupid, but something tantamount to that, how unconscionable they were. Of course, that's before they found all kinds of documents in his homes. So what would a potential Trump indictment look like, do you think? If this actually goes through and they actually do indict him, what would it look like? Now, GOP Representative Elise Stefanik, a top Trump ally in the House of Representatives, predicted to Punch Bowl this week, a news organization, that you're going to see President Trump continue to solidify his position in the Republican nomination. And it's not just Trump. Republican Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire, a vocal Trump critic who is mulling his own 2024 White House run, which ain't going to happen. He won't win. I'm just going to tell you right now, it ain't going to happen. But he's mulling it over. He doesn't like Trump at all. But he acknowledged on Sunday that an indictment could fuel a lot of sympathy for the former president because this is just not done, especially in light of the lack of evidence they have. So longtime GOP consultant Jim Merrill, a New Hampshire-based strategist. He's a veteran of numerous Republican presidential campaigns. He said that short-term, it's a benefit for Trump. It helps him to solidify the base. Now, I always have a problem saying this guy's name. He's running for president. I actually like this guy a lot. Ramaswamy. I think it's Ramaswamy. He calls the looming Trump indictment national disaster, but urges against protests in the streets. And Trump and his allies are also keeping score on what the actual and potential rivals for the nomination have said about the potential indictment, and in particular, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who has not declared he's running, but we know he is, unless, God comes out of the clouds and tells him not to. The popular conservative Florida governor remains on the 2024 sidelines, but is seen as Trump's top nomination rival if, as expected, he launches a campaign later this year. Now, after Trump criticized DeSantis, which I had a huge problem with that, I didn't know why Trump came out criticizing DeSantis. I didn't like it. You just don't do that. That violates the first law of being a Republican stated by Ronald Reagan many years ago. He says you don't speak ill of another Republican. So this looked bad to me. And so Trump criticized DeSantis for not speaking out. And the Florida governor on Monday ripped Bragg, the DA, over the likely indictment. He ripped a new asshole for the guy. And he claimed that the Manhattan DA was pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing his office for political gain. Now, DeSantis also labeled Bragg a Soros DA, George Soros DA. And that's a reference to billionaire Democrat donor George Soros, who isn't even a citizen of this country, who's a regular target of conservatives. Additionally, he charged that Bragg This is DeSantis charged that Bragg is part of a group of prosecutors who are a menace to society. And he's right about that. So he's criticizing Bragg, but he also said, I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that. Referring to Trump's alleged affair with Daniels. And Trump has denied that he had sex with Daniels. Daniels came out initially and denied it. So DeSantis added that I've got real issues I've got to deal with here in the state of Florida. So he really diminished is not the word I'm looking for, because he didn't diminish it to make it go away. He criticized in a roundabout way, hey, look, if you're going to have sex with a porn star and you got problems like this coming out of it, he says, I don't know how to speak to that because I've never done that. So now the governor's comments upset Trump and his allies as the former president and Donald Trump Jr. fired off attacks on social media. So now there's salvos going within the party. Trump, using a derogatory nickname for DeSantis, argued that Ron DeSanctimonious will probably find out about false accusations and fake stories sometime in the future as he gets older, wiser, and better known. And that's probably a glaring truth from Donald Trump, that DeSantis he'll find out about fake stories, false accusations in the future as he gets older and wiser and better known, and if he starts running for president. You know what you're going to see about DeSantis? As soon as he throws his hat in, what are you going to have the left doing? The left looking for all the dirt they can find on him and trying to publicize it. It was once found that Ron DeSantis, while he was in the Navy, spat on a sidewalk in public. And did you know there are still spitting on public sidewalk laws in that city, dating back into the early 1800s, but they're still valid laws. So DeSantis is guilty of breaking the law. Vilely and unconscionably spitting on the sidewalk. That's the kind of crap you're going to hear. And that's all this thing is with Trump right now and Bragg's accusations. While Republican strategists see a potential for a short-term gain for Trump, Merrill, who remains neutral in the GOP nomination race, said that long-term, I think the impact is kind of uncertain. We don't know where this is going to go. So former South Carolina GOP Executive Director Alex Stroman, who is also on the 2024 sidelines as of now, told Fox News, while it may give him, Trump, some goodwill in an early stage, you might see a bit of bounce in the polls. I think it's a temporary bounce. And I would agree with that. It's going to be temporary. So you got all that going on. Now, what time do we have left? We got 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes left for the radio audience. But there's a couple of other points I wanted to make. I've got an article in front of me that I think is really good. And you may want to go look this one up. This is Jonathan Turley. He's the Shapiro Professor of Public Interest Law at the George Washington University. So you might want to look up what he has to say about this. He compares Bragg's indictment, possible potential indictment of Trump, as he calls it, America's Got Trump, like America's Got Talent. It's a truly made-for-TV prosecution. Because you know what it's going to do? It's going to get a bunch of people who don't know how the hell to think through these things that are going to believe it. Now, he said the moment that we're waiting for, we've made it to the finale together. Those familiar words from America's Got Talent could well be the opening line for Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg when he's expected to unveil an indictment of former President Trump. With Trump's reported announcement that he expects to be arrested on Tuesday, which was yesterday, and it didn't happen, it would be a fitting curtain raiser for a case that's developed more like a television production than an actual criminal prosecution. That's because it's political in tone. It's politicizing the legal process. to try to eliminate an opponent from the other party. Trump faces serious legal threats in an ongoing Mar-a-Lago investigation, but the New York case would be easily dismissed outside of a jurisdiction like New York, where Bragg can count on highly motivated judges and jurors. And although it might be politically popular, the case is legally pathetic. Bragg's case is legally pathetic. Bragg is struggling to twist state laws to effectively prosecute a federal case long ago rejected by the Justice Department against Trump over his payment of the... This has gone to court before, and it was turned down over this payment of hush money to former stripper Stormy Daniels. And in 2018, yes, that's how long this theory's been around, by the way. It's difficult that such a case, a federal case like this, would be under existing election laws. Now, 6 years later, the same theory must be shoehorned into a state claim. So it's extremely difficult to show that paying money to cover up an embarrassing affair was done for election purposes as opposed to an array of obvious other reasons, from protecting a celebrity's reputation to preserving a marriage. And that was demonstrated by the failed federal prosecution of former presidential candidate John Edwards on a much stronger charge of using campaign funds to cover up an affair. So in this case, Trump reportedly paid Daniels $130,000 in the fall of 2016 to cut off or at least reduce any public scandal. And the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern Districts of New York had no love lost for Trump and pursuing him and his associates in myriad investigations. Investigation after investigation after investigation. Oh, we got something that'll stick now, says Bragg. But it ultimately rejected a prosecution based on the election law violations. It was not alone. The Federal Elections Commission chair also expressed doubts about the theory. So this goes on and on and on. And radio audience, you know what? We got to get out of here. We only got a few seconds before I got to let you go. If you want, you can come and join us in the YouTube channel and join the chat room over there. We'll maybe talk for a little bit more about this. But until then, you know what? Live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Well, and welcome to the captain's cabin, y'all. So, how's that for doing a couple of shows in a row dealing with politics? I haven't done a lot of politics on Intrepid Radio. You all know where I stand. I hit politics fairly regularly, but not as a topic for the shows. And so this gives you a little flavor of where this could go. It starts to get so amazingly full of stuff and junk and crap as you start digging into this stuff that it's really hard to avoid, but then it's hard to want to keep doing it at the same time. But I got to tell you something. If I was doing this as a political show, running this as a political show, I would never run out of material. I'd never wonder what I was going to talk about. Barbie DM politicized out too. But it's going to be with us all the time. That's the problem. It's always going to be there. I'm going to share with you something I read on Kenny B's show tonight or this morning because I put it on my Facebook after I read it because I really like this. Now, I want you to think about this too. When you think about the politics of our government, all the crap that goes back and forth, what a dirty feel. I go through this stuff tonight and I walk out of it with this. Just, you feel dirty. You feel like you got a shower after all this because you have to deal with all the crap that goes on and try to figure out and decipher and recognize and you got to think too. But on Ken's show, we talked about this morning and I read this because I thought it was good. So I'm going to read it now. And many of you have heard this before, if not all of you. Carl Sagan's The Pale Blue Dot. Have you heard this before? Have you seen him? There's a video where he reads it in the background, and this is part of his book, The Pale Blue Dot. Yeah, that's true, Philip Blair. And so, as we think about all these things that are going on in politics and how dirty it gets and so on, and governments and who's going to be in charge, who's more powerful, I have said for many years, I've said the history of humanity is equal to the history of war. You want to look at human history? All you got to do is trace the wars going all the way back as far as we can go. But here's what Carl Sagan had to say. And this was on the occasion of the Voyager 1 going through the solar system. And Carl Sagan had asked if NASA could have it turn the camera around and take a picture back toward Earth. And they did, and they transferred that at a distance of 3.7 billion miles. And the picture was taken on February 14th of 1990. Which knows how long ago that was. And here's what, and what they saw was this little tiny dot. Pale blue dot in the distance, 3.7 billion miles away. You wouldn't think you could see anything from that far away. But here's what Carl Sagan wrote as a result of seeing that picture. He says, look again at that dot. Here, I got to put on my glasses to read. Hold on. He says, look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that, in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There's nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. And that was Carl Sagan on this, talking about the planet on which we live. And when you think about that and decipher or filter the politics of the day through what Carl Sagan said there, those politics of this day come across mighty insignificant. And I got a couple of people in here. Let's get them in here. I got first one came in was Field Guy, and we also have the Professor. Professor Bauer, good to see you, brother.
Good evening, everyone. Hey, Field Guy, how are you?
Doing good, Professor. I got a few things I saw in chat, because when it comes to Louisiana, I have to talk about it.
Okay.
Real fast. Myrtle's Plantation is in St. Francisville. It's closer to Doug than it is to me. I've been there twice. I actually planned sometime this year on renting a room where the main ghost is and sleeping there. Because if you sleep there, it's free. You don't pay for it.
Cool. Free room.
But Matthew had it pretty good. But you forgot with the Trump called her Stormy Horseface Daniels.
Oh, I don't think she's that bad looking.
Yeah. Also, she's from Baton Rouge. She's not from New Orleans. But yeah, she's doing paranormal stuff now. Yeah.
Actually, Stormy Daniels looks like a stripper and a porn star. You know, I've seen a few porn stars that are really beautiful. And you know what's interesting? I've seen porn stars that were really beautiful when they started out. And then you see years later, you see a picture of them. You go, whoa, there's been like 5 or 6 years past and they look 30 years older. And you wonder about that sometimes. Now, I'm an appreciator of the female form. I will say that. Not a big porn aficionado, of course, but I'm an appreciator of women, and naked women turn my head. So I have to admit that, folks, just in case.
Name a male that it doesn't, unless they're a trans male, which means they have mental illness of some kind.
Which they're not a male at all, really.
You're right.
But I will say this. I looked at Stormy Daniels the first time I saw her. I went, I'd tap that. So, you know, that's the male reaction. I look at her and I go, I don't think she's bad looking at all. She might have fake boobs and stuff like that, but I can get over that. So
she's bad looking at all either, but that's what Trump called her, horse face.
Yeah, that's his form of lashing out. That's what he does.
So, Scotty, I've got a perspective on this whole politics thing, and
yeah.
And I got to tell you, having you do it 2 nights in a row I'm not sure if I'm treated or traumatized.
A little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both. So the way that I have been navigating through all of the political theater is to keep a few things in mind about what politics actually is. If you start with the linguistics, the first principle nut of the nugget thing, it's poly and ticks, meaning many ticks, right? So you kind of go, well, that's an interesting word that they chose. It's just like Congress is a whole shitload of baboons. So
there you go.
Right. So you have to start with some fundamentals and you go, okay, well, they've already really screwed up the name of the thing. And then if you really look at politics, what it gets down to from my perspective, when you have one side pitted against another, it's really an ideological battle. It's being played in politics.
Yes.
Okay. So right now we have this neo-lib leftist ideology against this traditional conservative oriented approach to life. And these are ideologies about how to live and how they want you to live and how you want to live and the battle in between. And one of the things that's been extremely fascinating in the 40 or so years I've paid conscious attention to politics is the switch ideologically between what's been traditionally called left and right. I mean, it used to be the right was the hawks. They were the ones going to war, pro spend and go do shit.
Yeah.
And the left was against that. In fact, I grew up in the original liberal enclave in Southern California in the 60s and 70s. And
Berkeley.
And, yeah, our mantra back then was screw the man and leave us alone. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is not the left neo-lib ideology of today. It's completely 180 degrees. And it's now the conservative right side, even the Trumpers, who are saying, screw war. We don't want to do any of that shit. Stop going in there and screwing with people. So the ideology has completely flipped. Okay. And then what happens within and this again is in my opinion, what happens in these ideologies is they go too far. They push it to an extreme to where it becomes laughably absurd at a minimum, if you're paying attention, and really dangerous if you're paying serious attention, because the ideologies promote a way of thinking. It's what to think, not how to think. You will see, and this is one of the things that the folks on the right have maintained, again, from the limited perspective that I've paid attention. They've always been pro get off your ass and go get to work. Okay.
Yeah.
And even though they have switched now and they're not as, pushing, not as much leaning into the whole war thing, they still maintain that if you follow the Constitution and the laws and you have responsibility and accountability for yourself, you take initiative. It doesn't matter what your color is, what your grade is, what your whatever is. If that's what you come to somebody on the right or in the traditional conservative model, if you come to them with that, they're going to embrace you. They're going to bring you on in. Say, yep, you checked off our major boxes. But on the left, they've gotten so diluted with so many counterfactual positions. This whole thing with this trans thing, right? And the whole gender equity and equality thing. It's like, well, wait a minute. You're saying that there's all these different ways in which one gender can become the other, and they need to have the rights and the respect and all the other shit that everybody else has. Okay, we understand that. But when you look at, what is it now? It's LGBTQRS LMNOP +, -,
ABC 1, 2, 3.
I mean, they can't even keep up with their own delineation and distinction that they're coming up with for themselves. But isn't it interesting that when anybody goes in for a reassignment therapy or treatment, there's only two choices. There's only man or a woman. You're going to go from one to the other, and that's all there is. So when you have all of these juxtaposed positions that you can't rationalize when you put them together, but they're coming out of the same folks, you ask them those questions, and the only thing they've got is the ad hominem attack, which you become some xenophobe.
And you know it. You got to start the whole response to that with, and the only thing they got is, when you got to start something that way, you know they're not operating from a buttload of factual information.
Well, and you also know that you have a very bad product you're trying to sell if you have to force people to take it.
Mm-hmm.
If it was so logical and so ethical and moral and fair, which are all subjective terms, all of those terms are subjective to the individual. Nobody has the same definition of fair. Nobody has the same definition of equal. No one has the same definition of morals and ethics and all these. That's why we have all these philosophers and theologies and so forth that have put together these guidebooks for how you should behave in society with your fellow human. And those fellow humans are either in the form of a male or a female. And I don't discount the fact that there is some psychological and mental, and that's all that's based on, from the standpoint of somebody wanting to become a man or a woman or vice versa. Okay. That's all psychological. They can say they don't feel right in their body. They can say whatever they want about their biology, but it's how they think about their biology that brings on this entire dysphoria of, what am I and what should I be? And I should have the right to choose. Well, yeah, you got the right to choose, but how much have you thought about this? And you certainly, if you're saying it before, you're in your 20s, which is where the mind, it's generally accepted that, you don't mature until you're in your mid 20s. You don't have a cognitive sense of being able to make commitments that are life altering until then. We don't let kids over 18 smoke, for example, or go see X-rated movies that are under that age. So why is that? Well, they're not mentally prepared for it. Why are all of these ratings on movies and songs and content for different ages? And I love this new one that I've seen come up on some of these movies. Caution, this movie contains coarse language.
Coarse language, yeah.
Coarse language. I'm like, I took a course in language. I think I'm okay.
What does that even mean? Coarse language.
Right? It's just another use and abuse of terms that are being used by ideologies and then injected into politics. And that was my whole point. Politics, the whole term of politically correct is an oxymoron. You can't have something that's political and correct at the same time. It doesn't work. Politics is important from a societal organization and management perspective, but that's it. The problem is all these ideologies have gotten into politics and they have infected and infiltrated either team with all these mental parasites of bullshit.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a theater. It's interesting to watch because it does affect us in some way, shape, or form. But I've noticed a distinct turn of tide, a shift in energy, a disturbance in the force. And there seems to be a shitload of people that are coming to the, you could say, the pre-awakened state. Their common sense bullshit meters are starting to peg, and some of them are pegging off into the red. And people are looking around and they're going, oh, wait a minute. It's just like this whole thing you've been going on about with Bragg and Trump being arrested.
Right.
It's like, okay, people are going, you're arresting him for what? And for all the shit you folks have tried for.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm talking to myself.
For all of the shit that they've put Trump through in the last 6 years, and they haven't gotten him on anything. Okay, they've gone for every fiber, every blood vein on his existence. And if nothing else, like him or hate him,
Yep.
I tend to think his bombastic nature is exactly what's needed to go in and make a difference in this
Like I
bullshit.
said, I'm all right with it.
It's theater. It doesn't bother me at all. I find it refreshing because all the rest of these people in politics, you listen to me go, how the hell did you get that? How you're doing what for who? I mean, we need to go find out who and ask them why they said you for them. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. But my point is there is a disturbance in the force, in my opinion.
Oh,
there is a significant shift of people going, wait a minute, this bullshit. If this is your last at bat, and this is the bat you're using to swing at the pitches that are coming at you, you might as well just give up. But they can't, because their ideology requires a fervent emotional component that that impels them to drive forward and push their ideology on everyone else. Because if they lose, they will be, their just world will fall apart. But the most important thing from their perspective, if they lose, then they can't control all the people that they think need to be controlled.
Yes.
So that shift, I think, is afoot. Every system, every institution, politics, financials, academia, media, all of the major institutions that make up the social fabric that we exist and play on have all been health, medicine. They've all lost any credibility they once had. Their performance has been so blatantly incompetent that it permeates the entire fabric. Everybody's looking at everything going, I don't care if you've got a PhD or expert this or that tattooed on the ass end of your name. You are a major suspect now.
Now, comments on this for a second, Professor. Yeah. Just the very simple fact that this whole agenda, this whole, I don't even know what to call it. I don't want to use cabal because I'm not thinking that way. This whole agenda that they're pushing is one that has a man like Biden that they refuse to take out of office, who is the leader of the country, supposedly.
But so look at who's following him as that, VP.
Professor, because it's a thing where we say we can look at all the minutia of everything else, but you look at just the sole fact that they want to keep this guy in office when everybody knows he's not fit to be there.
Well, anybody else? Let me just jump in here.
Thank you,
anybody else would want to speak for themselves, okay? And so that wouldn't work for the cabal. They want to make the decisions and rule as a group, as a committee. Okay, they don't want to. They'd like to replace our government, get rid of the president, or have the president as a figurehead, and just control everything as a committee.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to point out I agree with you 100%, Prof. But also you have to add to that, they have this hell-bent thing to try and make Trump out as a liar. And it goes way back to the beginning. And he said, hey, they were tapping my election office. Everybody's, they weren't tapping your election office. And the FBI came out.
Hold on, Chuck Thurston, Biden isn't just too damn old. He's too damn gone mentally.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow my grandfather in that state to run a country.
I don't care if he's 80, if he can think sharp.
Yeah, I don't either.
But this guy doesn't. And so they came out and they said, well, we weren't actually wiretapping. We were using a different eavesdropping method. But they were, in essence, doing what he said they were doing. And you go right down the line. He has said, if we do this, and this will happen. No, that's not going to happen. And then months later, years later, they go, oh, well, that all came out exactly like he said. Yeah. And there's just a whole bunch of things all the way down the line.
No.
And he'll make a statement and they call him on it. And then when everything calms down, turns out that he was correct. But they don't want to go back and say that then. They just brush that under the carpet and move on.
Well, they have to. And I'm going to, first of all, there's a list of at least 21 hoaxes that were all bullshit, that were fed, hyped and fed and pushed by all of the information disinformation agents. Okay.
And a big list of people that were Hillaried.
That's not true, Philip Blair. That's the cover story. That was the story. There's more to it than that.
So
that a little
there's
deeper.
not only that list, but to your point, Dave, there is a long list of Trump was right. So you have, if you take the hoax list and you take the Trump was right list and you start looking at it, what you have is, again, to me, I'm working on an blockchain and artificial intelligence project. So I'm deep into this linguistic shit that the geezer geeks like me have put together. And I got to tell you, tech guys are shitty when it comes to marketing. They don't know how to come up with terms or anything. Artificial intelligence doesn't belong together. Those are two words that were very loosely
Thanks,
and
Lola J.
lazily used colloquially to create a
Good night,
term,
Susie.
right? But let's focus on the word intelligence, because that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is intelligence? Intelligence, to me, is the efficiency with which one acquires, analyzes, and adapts to new information.
Which means it doesn't exist in DC.
Right? So,
Yeah.
but it's so you're the and the IQ thing, the test has got to be completely done because it's antiquated. But the idea of the efficiency with which, so how well you do that, you gather new information, you figure it out, and you add it to your stack. Smart is looking on your intelligence. Okay. Now, the problem with intelligence as it relates to the ideologies is that the acquiring, analyzing, and adapting new information is not something that they do real well. And part of being of having a very efficient intelligence system is the ability to be able to predict something. So as you gather new information, you start seeing, you have pattern recognition. That's how we actually function. Our minds function off of patterns. And when we see patterns, you can see trends. And if you are looking at what's going on and you make a prediction about the patterns and trends that you see, then you see how well they come up. Well, to me, that equals your grasp of reality.
Yep.
You gauge that grasp by being able to see
Philip Blair, by the way, I got to interrupt. Philip Blair, these are petty arguments. I don't really care what the American Legion would say about bone spurs. I think you need to look into that a little bit too and find out. I don't care. There are a lot of people that dodged the draft for a lot less than Trump or bone spurs or whatever. Doesn't really bother me. Did he have bone spurs? I don't know. Does he?
I'm not
but
sure
I think
the
those
relevance.
are petty arguments, and I get this.
Yeah, I'm not sure the relevance there, but to me, the
kind
point
of stuff that carries everybody away from real topics of importance.
So going back to your point, David, about there's this list of, these times that Trump said something and people shot it and then it turned out to be true. So apparently his intelligence, which he used to create those predictions, was such that he had a pretty damn good grasp of reality, right?
Yep.
And the people that have been looking at, so let's take the last, it's basically the last 10 years since Obama left, okay? Or at the beginning of his second term. There was this constant change of a narrative. There was all this equity and equality, and the race thing started coming up again. And, there was all this noise that seemed like, well, I think we kind of got through most of that, but it's now being brought back up. Well, all of these changes in the way that people, LGBTQ, the race thing, the class thing, it's like it all came up because it was the only way to agitate and keep the folks at each other. Because we were really, the last show I did on the Nexus at the end of, it was Christmas, New Year's on 2019, just before this whole scamdemic thing came out. And it was called the Knowledge Apocalypse. And what I saw was similar to what we saw in the 1920s, or it was called the Roaring 20s. To me, I had the sense that we're going to see the Soaring 20s. that what we were about to get into was just going to be amazing. And we still have a whole bunch of really amazing things that I think are going to come out. But again, to your point, Dave, and I'm sorry I'm kind of rambling around here. I'm trying to be information.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm trying to be information.
That's fine.
I'm trying to be information rich and to add context to the content. So you were saying, why would you put this old geezer in there? Right? What is it that made anybody think that this was going to be a really good idea? Okay.
Yeah.
So
he's controllable. He's a perfect puppet.
Well, so I kind of subscribe to this alt theory that there is an elite that are this cabal group, and then there's this alliance, which are typically referred to as the white hats, right? And that Trump's, a part of that. The whole Q thing fits in there. There's all kinds of stuff about it. But I think that there are two groups behind the scenes at the top that are doing battle. And it seems to me that all of this bullshit that I was talking about, the class, the race, the gender, all of the narrative got changed right when Obama was on his way out. It was starting to see all this crap in the media. And I was like, what the hell is all this? The nut jobs like the Alex Jones, there's another list, were being pilloried and then finally canceled and all this shit. Turns out he's got a long list of right shit too.
Yeah, he does.
And you sit there and you go, okay, so what's going on? So it seems to me that the elite, this cabal, this negative, nasty ass group of many ticks, they were clearly doing anything they could to get rid of Trump. They were throwing every fucking thing they could at him. Okay.
Chuck Thurston said he was better than Trump. Sadly, the Democrat Party couldn't come up with anybody better. The Democrats couldn't come up with anybody better than Joe Biden. Come on, Chuck.
Right.
You gotta think
They
better
couldn't
than
come
that.
up with anybody
I
more
could have named
controllable.
out a whole bunch of Democrats that have voted for over
Dave,
Biden.
You're exactly right, and that's the point I'm trying to get to. I think that because of the complete infection of parasitic thinking across the entire government, intelligence, regulations, agencies, CDC's been a complete flop. NIH is like, why do we have that? Education, it's like, we need to get rid of that because that's clearly not working. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that need to be fixed. Well, the other way you can fix it, you either crash the entire thing at once, or you repiece it, you take things out and rebuild it as you go along. If you take everything out at once, it's just going to be painful for everybody. So I think what happened was this alliance group, they saw the complete onslaught that this ideology on the left was throwing at Trump, and it's infiltrated across the entire government system. Okay, so they said, all right, the only way to really make this work is to get the people to want it to work, to want it to change. How are we going to get millions of people who are just infected when they're mentally? How are we going to get them to see and agree with the change?
We didn't feel too left out.
I'm sorry, I'm filibustering. I'm just about done. I'm just about done. So they looked at this and they said the only way we can get this change effectively done with as much efficiency and damage mitigation as possible is to let the people that are trying to screw everything up, let them go ahead and run it.
Yeah.
Let them get in and let's let them go in. We'll stay in the background and we'll keep guardrails on, but let's let them expose themselves, because the best way to change all this is for everybody to see how truly pathetic they are, how truly disconnected mentally from the rest of humanity they are, because they will go in and try to pull all their crazy shit. Right. So I think, Dave, that's why they not only Biden is in there, but they let him in there. They encouraged him to go because they went, well, this guy's going to just wear out that presidency in no time. Nobody's going to believe that shit, which has pretty much happened in the first year. But boy, is it on the flames on high boil on that pot right now.
Yeah.
And then you look at the VP is like, nobody wants that. There would be a revolt on both sides of the ideological aisle if that happened. The only way that he can be removed effectively is there's two ways, either by health or by the abject facts that he was clearly involved in criminal financial doings, which I think is what we're about to see.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like they've protected him up till now, but I think at the same point they're like, maybe we could utilize this because there is a mounting pile of evidence.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And and then you see these crazy ass things like Hunter suing the guy the laptop store owner guy for invasion of privacy. It's like, what? It's kind of like this trial with Bragg. I mean, this is like,
it's not my laptop, but it's an invasion of my privacy for you to let that information out.
That's right.
Hunter invaded his own privacy when he took all that shit and put it on his laptop. Yeah. But so do you see my point? The absurdity.
Don't you think that subconsciously he tried to destroy his dad?
I think there's a subconscious thing going on there.
I think there is. You love my brother better than me. You've never liked me. Fuck you. I'm gonna screw up your presidency. And then it didn't come out beforehand. And he's like, well, God, I really thought that was gonna work.
Yeah.
I think that whole, it's clear, at least from the undeniable evidence, that is one fucked up family. I mean, they have got some serious issues across the board, and the thing is, they've been trying to tack that onto Trump, and it's like he's got one of the cleanest cribs I think has ever been vetted. I mean,
Hey, Chuck Thurston, who are you asking that of? Good, just don't attack the Capitol again, and let them run it.
Oh, Jesus!
Who are you talking?
Have you seen any of the actual footage from that day? I don't think anybody attacked the Capitol.
Love you, brother, but you know what? That's kind of dumb.
Well,
when you take all the FBI insiders out of it, there was nothing but tourists.
And I even tell my wife that sometimes, so don't take offense. Rainey, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah, well, the thing is that
Trump
to me,
there's a lot of people who love Trump. It had nothing to do with what happened at the Capitol.
Yeah. To me, this is all theater. It's supposed to play out the way it is. Theater. I think we're in kind of a spitball freeform part of the plan right now, from the standpoint of if there is a plan, and I think there is some kind of plan, and it's along the lines of what I've said. I think the folks that are real followers of the Constitution.
Chuck, are you drinking? Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Committed patriots, committed to the idea of America, of the United States. Okay. Those folks are the ones that Trump is in line with, and that are the ones that are doing the battle in the background with the other side, with the elite, if you will.
Sure.
Okay. And I think that we're going to see some serious shit. So I'm going to go ahead and make some predictions. So to test my grasp of, gauge my grasp of reality. I think over the summer, we're going to see more and more shit come out as we're obviously on a bit of the crest of the tsunami right now. But I think that it's going to take Biden out. I think there's a real good chance by the fall that somehow or another he will be completely nullified, and if not, taken out. I think that during that time is when it's like, let's see. Well,
I think they're going to eliminate Camilla first.
Yeah, she goes first, right?
They're at some point they've got to come down on her and say, we are going to demand your resignation because you haven't fixed the border, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. The president's given you 3 or 4 tasks, you haven't done any of them. We're going to ask you to step down, or we're going to publicly let you go.
I would like to see that blow up into the scandal that it is too. I'd love to see them accuse her of not doing anything when they more than likely, if she had tried, wouldn't have given her the ability to do it.
Right, but you know that's the argument they're going to use.
Oh, and sure it is.
She's not the first VP that will have been fired.
Well, can a president fire a vice president?
Yes.
They're voted by the people, aren't they?
No.
Well, Nixon got rid of Agnew and brought in Ford, and when Nixon got impeached, Ford took over. So there's precedent for this, and the executive has the complete authority at will to
ask for the resignation of anybody in the cabinet.
That's
And
interesting.
the thing is that he can replace the vice president without a vote.
Yeah.
Does not need to be
That is
approved
true. I
by
do know
the
that.
Congress. Okay. So it's like there's an easy, the law already provides an easy escape
Well,
for.
this is how Truman became VP, isn't it?
No, it was Roosevelt. I think it was Roosevelt that became Truman's VP. Truman checked out, and Roosevelt then became president through the next
It
election.
was the other way.
No, Truman
Wait.
followed him around. Truman followed Roosevelt.
Yeah, you're right.
Got it.
Roosevelt was on his third term, but Roosevelt had a different guy that was his VP for the first two terms. And then shortly after the election, they replaced him with Truman.
Yes, yeah, you're right. You're right. So,
And the party did that. The president didn't even really do that. The party came to him and said, "We're changing your VP. You don't really get an option here."
so the question is, if that is the story that's about to unfold, when they get rid of Kamala, who are they going to replace her with?
Well,
What's your pick?
I'm going to throw this out there, and okay.
It's whoever they want to have in office.
Everybody would love it to be Hillary, but I don't think it will be.
No,
Because the powers that want to keep control know that she will take control.
Maybe
They will
Michelle
not
Obama?
have us. Nope. I think they're going to put Pelosi in there.
Oh, Jesus.
Ooh.
And here's why. She gets to retire as well. She gets the title Madam Vice President. Even if Biden stays in, she'll always be Madam Vice President, huge feather in her cap, and she'll never let that die, right? But she will most likely inherit the presidency because they will ask him to step down while she's the VP, making her the president, even if it's just the last year of the term. Okay? Then she runs as an incumbent. She finishes out his term, runs as an incumbent, and the Dems will fall all over themselves to vote for a woman. She'll have the feather in her cap and be able to thumb her nose at Hillary that she's the one that broke the ceiling. She was the first female Speaker of the House and the first president, even if she wasn't the first VP.
That's a very interesting and very frightening scenario. I think,
Yeah, it
And a
is.
very believable one, though, isn't it?
well, to a certain extent, but I think
And even if she loses, she still gets to be Madam Vice President Madam President for the rest of her life because she will have been president for the last year of Biden's term.
While I think that her ego would definitely, that would be a high fuel level on her ego. I think that the biggest problem with Pelosi, she's just like Biden. She's too fucking old. And I
totally agree. But that's why they like her. They like her better than Hillary. She's somewhat controllable.
Well, yeah.
Hillary is not going to be controllable.
I have to agree with you. There are a lot of people that love Pelosi because she was a brilliant political strategist.
Yeah, but she's an aging cunt. Okay,
she is. But Hillary, if it were Hillary would take control.
They're not going to pick a woman. I bet
they do. I bet they do. Unless it hits a man that dresses like a woman.
I think they're going to go with Newsom.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh boy!
I think that they would be better off to make Pelosi president and have him come in as the VP.
Well,
because she probably would only run one term because of her age.
And they'd have that all worked out ahead of time too.
And then he in essence would run as an incumbent and could get 8 years out of it. So you could maybe get 12 years out in the same way that I think the smartest thing Trump could do is bring DeSantis on as his VP. Yep. He can only sit in there for 4 years because he's already done 4. So he comes in, he does his 4 years, he gets the economy rolling again, does all that, turns everything over to DeSantis, who can get another 8 years out of it. And if the party can maintain the House and take the Senate back as well, and we could get 12 years of continuing operation, we can undo all the damage done. The alternative is the Dems get the next 12 years and damage us beyond repair.
I agree with
Apologies to any of you Dems out there, but it is what it is.
that. The
The
Dems,
current
it goes back to
progressive,
the point,
current progressive party are not just Dems. They are moving us so far to the socialist left, and they are trying to undermine the Constitution at every chance they get.
they're trying to control the shit out of all of us.
Yeah.
What we say, how we say it, the words we use, the interactions that we have with people. You have to.
We won't have to worry. The three of us, we won't have to worry. We'll all be in a concentration camp someplace.
What's the matter?
I'm going to be at my own concentration.
What's the matter
camp.
with you two? Don't you know that they're pushing love and compassion for everybody?
Yeah, we'll all be Hillary.
You know, I can take any word I want and I can make it fit the definition that I want it to have.
Sure, you can.
And that's part of the weaponization of language that this ideological crap on
Because you know how to bower better than anyone.
That's right. I am the best bower you will ever have. And I can personally attest to my own bowerness.
That's right.
But this whole ideology on the left is convoluted. It doesn't even connect with itself, was the point that I was making earlier. And that the use, abuse, the intentional mangled weaponization of language is the only thing they've got. Because if they tried to sell their ideology and belief of this, you know, the morals and the ethics and the way in which, you know, society and people should interact and respect one another and what all the new definitions are and all this other shit, that is antithetical to the way that the human functions, particularly a human in America where freedom of speech, freedom to associate, freedom of the pursuit of happiness. If you look in the Constitution, it says the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Okay. It specifically says happiness and the pursuit thereof. All right. Well, have you noticed? It could be me. It could be my bias because we all have bias and preferences and peccadillos and everything else. But have you guys noticed that when you look at people that assign themselves or identify themselves with the left or the neo-libs, the progressives, whatever the hell they're calling themselves, do you realize that there's a common demeanor of not being happy?
Yeah.
They are angry people. They are not happy.
And they're maddest at anybody that is happy.
And so with the freedom of the pursuit of happiness, which is what, you know, one of the fundamental components of the character of what America is, freedom of speech, freedom to associate, freedom to pursue that which your dreams, okay, the American dream. Well, if these people think that they have the best definition of how to go maximize and get as much of the pursuit of happiness as possible, apparently it's not working for them because they're all miserable. It's a bunch of weak men and angry women. And you look at it and you go, what happened? Was feminism a part of this? Did feminism actually achieve its goal and realize it's not what it wanted? I mean, you look at all of this sports shit. I asked somebody a question on Twitter the other day. They were going on about, you know, you got some kind of phobia when a man comes in and, you know, competes in a woman's sport and completely dominates it. I said, well, okay. And let me apply this to the whole drag queen thing too. Where are the women going into men's sports? I haven't seen any. I've seen a few, you know, play bouts and, you know, parody and crap, but I don't see any women going in and winning any men's track meets or swim or marathons or anything else. And to that point, drag queens, I remember growing up in Los Angeles in the 70s, and drag queens were to us kids and our teens and coming of age, drag queens just were guys that were performance artist kind of folks that had a weird tinge that none of us would really go do. But hey, they were funny. They were guys dressing up as women or these
like, hey,
female feminine characters,
money.
right? And so they weren't reading books to us. They weren't doing anything. They were just jumping on a pole or a stage and doing their thing. Well, now this whole drag queen thing is up in the again. And I'm looking around going, where the hell are the drag kings? Where are the women dressing up as men and doing this? I don't, there's something going on here. So I'm trying to connect some dots. So I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, feminism was the whole idea.
I got to interrupt you for a second because I got to ask Blair a question here.
Yeah.
Can you list me all the times that Trump sent people out to burn books or kick in doors and haul people out into the street and have them shot in the head? I don't quite get
same with DeSantis. I would like to know.
Yeah,
when,
I'm not sure when those incidents were happening. I do see a lot of BLM people burning books and a lot of other groups out there, the Antifas out there burning things. I don't quite understand. It's the labelers that tend to do that, and I don't see Trump throwing labels on groups. So
by the way,
really
I got to dispel a myth that I've seen before. Philip, you said, and I'm not picking on you, Philip, but you're saying some stuff that merits some response. You said, I remember drag queens reading books to me as a child in Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire wasn't a drag queen. The whole storyline had nothing to do with being a drag queen.
Just like Tootsie wasn't either.
Who wanted to be a dad to his kids, and the only way he could see them was to put on some ridiculous disguise. And it wasn't because he wanted to be a drag queen, it's because he was doing this to see his children. You're obliterating the entire theme of the story if you say he was a drag queen or compare him to a drag queen. That's just
and for that matter, Tootsie
like that gets said to make points about something, when in reality there's so many of these things like this that are said that aren't really moored in actual facts about something. That is a simple example you're using, but that simple example all by itself isn't even moored in fact. It's not what the story was about. So that doesn't really count as an argument.
And that also runs up there with DeSantis's never say gay thing. The bill had never once said that. Had nothing to do with that. It's all about whether or not it's appropriate to be teaching sex ed to kindergartners and first graders and third graders.
That was about with DeSantis.
And it's not. It's not okay. It's not okay
to teach my child, my kindergartner, about that. I don't care what the extreme LGBTQ++ movement wants to say is appropriate for kids to learn, or they need to learn this stuff. No, they don't.
And there are plenty of people. There are plenty of people that are gay and lesbians and stuff that have come out and said, we don't support this. This is not appropriate. This is a specialized group of pedophiles that are trying to streamline and what's the word I'm looking for? Normalize behavior that they don't even approve of in their own groups and organizations.
And that was the point I was making earlier, David, when they started pushing all of these different delineations of, orientation. Okay. Yeah. I looked at it and I said, well, what is new here other than there's a new way to delineate your preference? It used to be just gay, straight, or bi.
I'm going to tell you something, Philip Blair. Robin Williams was a female impersonator in that production that's made a felony in Tennessee. Not the same thing at all.
Good grief.
Well, Robin Williams
is a perfect
playing a part.
Philip is a perfect example of the ideological problems that I was saying that are in the left. First of all, that previous comment that you put up, did you notice the emotion in the way it was typed with caps and quotes? And there was an intended emotion there. He's thinking everything that he's thinking is driven by emotion first. Facts are questionable, because everything that he has said at this point with an emotive intent is factually incorrect. So you sit there.
I don't think the Dalai Lama would approve.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Let alone Desmond. But you keep putting up those quotes by
he doesn't
King
know what
James,
he's talking about,
Philip.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what your point is with that, but I'm going to sidestep that right now. I like the fact that you're here. I don't mind it if you're going to put something up, you're trying to be a little incendiary, and I'm willing to debate you on that. If you're going to put it up in the public chat room, I'm going to publicly say something about it. So don't let that bother you.
I must first care about your opinion.
That's
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah. I'm not insulted by any of it, but Robin Williams was not a female impersonator. He
grief.
was, if you strip away every tendril of factoid about what Robin Williams was in that movie production. Robin Williams was not a female impersonator. That is not what the law in Tennessee was all about. And you know what? Tennessee can't make a felony law. They can make a state law. So
and Matthew Sainsbury, you said that Philip is entitled to his view. He's entitled to his opinion.
yes,
His view is clearly incorrect because he's got a whole bunch of shit wrong.
yeah.
So he can have his opinion about the shit he has wrong, but you're going to get smacked back with people that start with data
I am
first.
Tell you, I totally agree with Professor Bauer here. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, but that's a cop out if you're using that to say you can say anything you want without having your facts straight.
Right.
That's different. Everybody's got a point of view. I got a point of view. Prof's got a point of view. Uncle Dave's got a point of view. Matthew has a point of view. Philip has a point of view.
Usually right.
But when we express our points of view, we better damn well have our facts straight. Otherwise, it becomes a bunch of ridiculous bullshit.
Well,
And
that's
it's
because
point of view or not.
That's because when you get to be our age individually and collectively,
Old guys like us. Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with some fact checkers, okay, that have serious fact check credentials.
More than that, we have memories and we can remember.
That's my point. Yeah, that's where I
remember
was going with the memories.
Yeah.
But my question is always, don't you think if I was wrong, I'd know it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I thought I was wrong once, but I was only mistaken.
I was only mistaken.
That's the only time I can think of being wrong. So, yeah. And you know
As
what?
I said to my ex-wife, Amy, I think I know you a little bit better than you do.
Yeah. And keep in mind, remember, Dave, you remember these days. Remember when Adam and I at the Renaissance Festival did a fight in dresses? We had to do,
yes.
It was the live chess match, combat chess. There'd be sword fighting and all kinds of stuff would go on for the audience. And Adam challenged, or our pieces challenged each other. And so Adam said, I want to wrestle you in a dress. And so I had to put on a dress on stage.
Well,
and
Adam had some issues.
Somebody was in my pantaloons.
And now you're stooping his woman.
Somebody showed a video of that. It was part of a video clip for a bunch of people in a cast thing later that year. And they showed Adam and I fighting in dresses on the stage. And they're playing, dude looks like a lady. And I said, yeah. So you're saying under Tennessee law that I would be committing a felony as an actor donning a dress to look like a lady to play a part. See, that's where that just doesn't hold.
Some of Shakespeare can't be played below the Mason-Dixon line.
Don't say gay is a pedophile protection law. Should be called Our Little Secret. I'll give you an example. When I was in second grade, I was screamed at by a school counselor for looking up sex in the encyclopedia. Today, her son is in state prison for soliciting sex from a minor. He was caught through police sting in Spokane. Same result can be expected in Florida. I think those two things are incongruent with each other.
Yeah,
because
the whole law was to prevent that kind of behavior.
By using the "Don't Say Gay" moniker to label what DeSantis was doing was an outright lie. It was meant to sway people to think that that's what he was doing when that was not at all what he was doing.
Yeah.
All the "Don't Say Gay" thing came from, as Uncle Dave already said, that was because DeSantis approved a law that said in the state of Florida, you cannot teach, I don't even remember the exact stating of the law. You either couldn't teach it, you couldn't teach all of these things, this kind of sexuality.
Under grade 6 or something like that.
Grade 3, I think it was. Grade 4 or grade 3. It just said, you can't teach that in schools. That is a parent's fucking job, not the school. You don't teach my kid what's right or wrong about being gay or homosexual or straight or cis or whatever. My 11-year-old girl doesn't even need to know that yet in the 5th grade. So don't tell me that DeSantis came out and said, don't be gay, that he was passing a don't be gay law, just say no to gays or whatever it is. No, don't be gay. That is not at all what he did. It was a lie from the start to discolor what he was doing by the militant faction of the LGBTQ++ movement. Now, you got to know, Philip, too, there are a whole lot of gays out there, too, that support what DeSantis does. Yep. I just like to post from one of them today, an organization that are, I can't remember what it said, gays and lesbians against whatever it was. I saw it on Instagram, and it surprised me so much. I liked it. Because you know what? Not every LGBTQ++ person supports, and the vast majority of them do not support teaching that to little kids. So come on, don't give me this. You got to look into the facts before you look into your feelings about something.
Philip is
I have
just
plenty of gay friends that are opposed to it.
And Philip, yeah. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the idea that you would present something that is so inanely unfactual as a basis for something you're trying to say.
Yeah, Philip needs to realize that he's entitled to his own opinion, but not his own facts. Okay,
you are entitled to your opinion, but why would you want an opinion that's not based in fact?
Yeah,
then that would just be fabrication. If I believe something and I'm putting it out there, I don't want to have a lack of facts on my side.
It's very progressive, though.
Yeah, it is.
The whole progressive thing, that's the thing, is that, progressive is a great thing. You always want to be progressing. Progressing means that you are improving, and that's a good thing. But they have taken it and they've demolished it and turned it. It's just like being called a racist. Racist doesn't mean shit anymore, except for the people that it matters to.
When everybody's a racist,
the rest of us is like,
there are no racists.
It's like, give me a break. You've worn that word out. You've worn out all these other words, and progressive is one of them. I'm a progressive traditionalist. Okay, I like shit that I know works, that has a good history, that makes me happy. Can I improve on them? That's the progressive view of the way I approach it.
I believe in a world without labels.
And
exactly.
Philip, I don't know what your point is. I too know LGBTQ people who don't remember their thoughts from childhood. I remember a lot of straight people that don't remember their thoughts from childhood.
And yet I can remember it too, standing and looking out the window. So
my first kiss was in kindergarten, Scotty Roberts. If I were required, I could even produce a witness. My first kiss was in 5th grade.
Linda my first Playboy.
I got in trouble in kindergarten for kissing Karen, I think. But at lunchtime, Myra Patterson came up to me and said, "You can kiss me if you want to." So I had that
my sexual orientation was confirmed when I first saw my first Playboy at 6. I said, "That's it. That's where I'm going. I want that, and as long as I can get some of that, I don't need anything else."
A womb with a view.
That's right.
And by the way, for the record, I must say again, I don't care what anybody wants to do as an adult. It's your choice. If you're gay, if you're LGBTQ, if you're straight, whatever it is, it's not my business. But don't tell me things that aren't factual. And don't ever fucking dare any of you try to push that on my children. My children can decide what I want them to decide. I'm their dad. My school district doesn't have a right to tell them what to believe about some of these things. Now, I'm not anti-gay or anything like that. I'm anti-teaching it to my kids. If they're going to be gay, they'll find out when they're older.
That's a symptom of the infection of the ideological left into the education and schooling system. There's a whole shitload, a whole nother list of shit that is wrong with the schooling and the education system. That is, the standardized testing and having the equity of outcome, all of that shit. That is completely destroyed. The whole process, most important thing that we do is learn. We learn every waking moment. We learn in our dreams even. But learning is a fundamental component of the way we exist. We feed on learning because it's just something that happens every day. You learn something whether you're sitting there wanting to learn or not. Oh, shit, the light came on. Oh, there's a storm coming. I mean, you learn stuff all the time. And that is not what our education system is built on.
Right. And
There's a
Philip,
great
I'm not
people
sure.
how
I'm
to
not trying to
critically
pick on
think.
you,
We
but
don't
you're
do that
putting a lot
anymore.
of statements out there, Philip. Stalin and Mao are on the left, or Mao? Did you mean? I don't know what you mean by that. They're not on the left in this country. First of all, because they didn't operate within this system, this political system. Stalin and Mao were tyrants. In
They were
their own
autocrats,
countries.
dictators. Yeah,
So I'm not sure where you're going with some of the things you're saying.
I think he may be
They were
disjointed with
anti-gay.
something else because it's not making any sense.
They were also some of them were anti-Jew, some of them were anti-gypsy, some of them were anti-this, anti-that, anti-the other thing. I say rather than point out the things they were against, point out what they were for. Personal power. That's what they were out to get. Power over people, control of the masses, and the only ones that are making money, so to speak.
And history.
So-
and so there's another thing that they've been trying
And
to, it's
history,
actually been rewritten a number of times by a number of different groups. But history right now, I mean, the whole idea of tearing down statues is like, well, we don't like what that person did or stood for. It's like, well, that's why you need to have it up there so it can remind you and people can remember
Right.
and the new people can learn. You don't take away things and think that it's going to help people not learn.
Right.
But the other thing is, there's every time there's some kind of genocidal kind of nonsense, the first thing people pop up is the Holocaust and Hitler. When Stalin and Mao just made Hitler look like an amateur with the number of people that they killed and the totalitarianism that they imposed on their people.
Right.
Mao is somewhere around 100 million. Holocaust is around 6 or something. Stalin was around 60 million. So it's fascinating how, because right now one of the other overused, abused, and worn out terms is you're a Nazi. It's like, if people really knew about the Nazis, they wouldn't use that term to describe somebody.
Well, right.
They have this one little slice of history that people have assigned as the main subtitle to the term in the picture.
Right.
And that's all that people know for the most part. It's like, no, that's been selectively curated for your consumption to make you think a certain way.
Sneakier about it than who? Philip, you're saying here, and I agree with you, King James I of England did actually say that. That's 100% fact from 1617. Now, did he have his facts straight? Not necessarily. His King James Bible is full of political holes and junk. There were things that they transliterated rather than translated certain texts into the King James for political purposes.
Which is why I constantly point out on this show, dogma over actual faith.
Dogma over actual faith. Now, did King James actually say that? Here, let's read the whole quote you put up. You may be sure that I love the Earl of Buckingham more than anyone else, and more than you who are here assembled. I wish to speak in my own behalf and not to have it thought to be a defect. He goes on, for Jesus Christ did the same, and therefore I cannot be blamed. Christ had John, and I have George. That's King James of England. Yes, it's a fact he said that. Is
what the hell does that have to
content
do
of
with
what
anything?
he said factual? That's what you got to look at. I don't.
But
disagree
also,
that
two
King
men
James
can love
said
each
that.
other without having sexual feelings for each other at the same time.
Yeah.
Men and women. I have many women that I love dearly. Think of them like sisters, but we don't have sexual relations.
Yeah. And all it says in the Bible about John, and there's a lot of theorizing about this, all it says about in the Bible about John, the disciple, he was the youngest disciple. He was also the one that was the most beloved by Jesus, the beloved disciple. He's the one who he said, take care of my mom from the cross. Take care of my mom. And I put you in charge of my mom. And it's that same John who's the guy who wrote the book of Revelation about 60, 70 years later in his dotage on the Isle of Patmos. That's the John you're talking about. Nowhere is it indicated other than by pure speculation to try to fit a political narrative that John and Jesus were gay lovers, which is what your implication is. What King James' implication was. What your is by quoting King James and not stating this was King James' opinion. The fact that he said it is true. The fact that is it a fact that what he said is a fact? No. So, and it doesn't matter either way, really, when it comes down to it. I'm just saying, when you say stuff like that, you got to back up your claim. You can't just say stuff.
I did not have sex with that Messiah.
I did not have sex with that Messiah. Yes. And John, there are many who think John might have been actually Mary, the wife of Jesus, and that it was a cover. It was a cover story put in.
It was changed in the King James version.
Yeah. So, there's all of that stuff. I don't really care either way. What I see is that
sure John in the Last Supper is not John.
I've got friends that are male friends that I say, like my friend John Ward and I say, I used to say when we were doing a lot of public stuff together and speaking and writing, I said, I love this man more than anybody on this planet other than my wife. Was I gay?
No.
Was that a statement of being gay? No.
The bromance.
Not that it mattered. It doesn't matter that we were or weren't. What matters is that we use the word love for each other and that I love this man with all my heart and more than anybody else on the planet. Other than
I say I love you to Scotty all the time.
What's interesting?
I love you all the time.
What's interesting to me is that there are two words in the English language that are
severely censored.
There are two
the true Celtic wolf.
Two terms in the English language that are the most used and have the most different delineations and distinctions and differentiations depending on the one and who's using it. Yeah. And that is love and fuck. And both
love
of those
have many facets as just fuck. Yeah.
Yes. That's my point. I mean, there are so many different ways in which these words that they're tossed around freely and lazily and everything else, and by people who don't know even how they are using them, even though they're using them.
Yeah.
You can love someone without being in love with someone.
I love my guitar.
Philip,
I love my dogs.
That is not true.
I love my single malt scotch.
Peter did not question Jesus on the intimacy of his relationship with John. Please cite for me a source on
Jesus. That. Is this going to go on where it's all of these unverifiable statements that are been mangled and wrangled over the millennia that nobody can verify? Is that what this is all about? It's a bunch of bullshit. Nobody knows for sure.
Unless you're
I can quote Shakespeare and fucking Macbeth.
Maybe I am misinterpreting Philip. I think maybe he's just presenting to me all the stupid shit that the gay movement likes to foist on people. Because that is just simply not true. Philip, I have never seen, in all my years of study, I have never seen that put forward before. That Peter was jealous and rebuked by Jesus when Peter questioned Jesus on the intimacy of his relationship with John. Where do you find that even in the biblical text?
Who cares?
I saw Jesus. Well, for sake of facts, I saw Jesus rebuke
Simon liked fishing a little too much.
He said, I found that the only time Jesus rebuked Peter was when he asked Peter over and over again, Peter, do you love me? And you got to look at the original language because there were 3 different words used in the Koine Greek for love, for different types of love. He said, Peter, do you love me? Agape love. And Professor Bauer, you know this because you went to seminary and all that too. Agape love. It's that love of God, the love of the Holy Spirit.
There's the brotherly love.
Phileo love.
Yeah,
there's man or person to person.
There's sticky love, and then there's the sandy love.
Yeah.
And then you can love the loving lovers, or you can fuck the fucking fuckers. I mean,
that's the way it is. Yeah.
It's a really messed up.
We have digressed. So
yeah, it's mental gymnastics and fornication at its finest, because the people that are using all these terms and trying to fit them into a narrative that they want to push on everybody else, they don't even know what the fucking words mean. They're just pulling the word out and they're going, well, we're going to use it for this now, because that's why you have, all these other letters. All you really have is gay, straight, and bi. That's it. There's nothing else.
There is nothing else.
3.
Anyway, Celtic
Three.
Wolf. I'm not
There
sure
are
what you're
3
laughing
genders
at. You're
that
laughing
can
at us, or you're
biologically
laughing
be
at that,
born.
or you're laughing at the whole thing.
And that's it.
If you got a point to make, come on and make it. I'm willing to listen to anybody. Philip, I like Philip. Philip's here all the time. I'm not trying to say
Follow
anything
the science,
to
Philip.
demean
There are
Philip.
only 3
Dave, shut
genders
the
that
fuck
can
up.
be
I'm
biologically
talking.
born.
Jesus Christ. You listen to the show? I'm talking. Philip, I don't have any problem with you expressing an opinion. I love you being here. What I don't like is if you're going to express an opinion that has no solid base to it, that it's just a flippin' thing that's out there. Where's the girls, babies? Oh, that's Celtic Wolf. So I don't remember. I'm looking. It's in the Gospel according to St. John. Philip Blair, I can tell you something, and I'm not lifting my kilt to show you my nuts or anything like that, making this point, but I studied all that stuff. I went to Bible, like Professor Bauer. We went to Bible college. I went to seminary. I was in ministry. We studied all this stuff. 40 years ago, I was studying this stuff. And 40 subsequent years. It's nowhere in there. Trust me. So it's not logical to assume that compassion incarnate would be less compassionate than any of us gathered here tonight. What's that mean?
Know what that means. I don't know what that means.
Okay, I can agree with that basic statement, but what does that mean? It's not logical to assume that compassion incarnate that's in the flesh, compassion in the flesh, would be less compassionate than any of us gathered here tonight. I don't know what you mean by that.
I have no idea.
Incarnate means in the flesh. So I don't know what your point is. And we're not talking about compassion. You can say anything you want. Does stating something that's not really factual diminish or increase compassion? Well, we got to say it this way. We got to state falsehoods in order to build compassion. Is that what you're saying? That's a bunch of hooey. So
thanks for playing. But that was a
Chief
big
Romeldi, and I would even disagree with you. Welcome to the Bible, the world's oldest telephone game. The Bible has been rewritten so many times and nobody knows. All that
I agree with that.
No offense, Romeldian, that shows you have no textual criticism studies under your belt.
He is right Scotty, he is right. That thing's been written and rewritten.
Oh, he's right that
how
it's been
many
written
times?
and rewritten and rewritten. But we also have texts that go back to the Codex A, the Codex B. We've got all of these texts that date back to within 100 years of the beginning of all of it.
That somewhat substantiate what's in what King James and the gang did to the writing. But then you got all these apocryphas. You got the Book of Enoch, which goes way beyond what's in the Old and New Testament.
And I used to say about Enoch, it was removed from the canon of Scripture by the councils under Constantine, started by Constantine. But it's the only book that you got several prophets in the Bible quoted from it. You got Jesus himself quoted from Enoch. You got Paul or Peter quoted from Enoch. And I thought, hey, if it's good enough for the Christ, it's good enough for me. Well,
I still want to know.
But it says stuff in there that the dogma of the church didn't want to go with.
Like reincarnation.
Yep.
Like the whole spiritual aspect of it.
Okay,
I've always had this question.
References. I don't have a Bible here to look them up. Why don't you tell us what they say?
I've always had this question.
Thank you, Celtic Wolf. We are fabulous.
Where in the hell did Christ find guys named Peter, Paul, Luke, and John? I mean,
we're in Judea.
Come on. They didn't. Those names did not exist back there. They are
they're Hellenized
Roman.
Names. Hellenized.
What happened?
Yeah, Latinized.
So what were their real names?
Well, Peter was, who was he?
Who
was
were
Cephas.
these fuckers? These mysterious fuckers.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Peter was
Peter was
Cephas,
a Simon, wasn't he?
Simon and Cephas, rock,
And Paul was Saul, right?
Saul, and John was.
Well, the first thing we got to do is change some of these names. They sound very Jewish.
Hi.
Exactly. They're not going to believe it.
I say, can we find some names that are a little less Jewish sounding?
How about Schmuck and Putz? Let's put
I
them
like
in
the
there.
Gospel of St. Thomas. I think it's an interesting book, Gospel. There's about 75 Gospels, and there's only 4 of them in the Bible.
Clearly, some of these prophets must have been British.
So I'm not sure what these verses are saying that you're listing.
Good God, how can we rule an empire
What
without
does
having...
John 13:23 say? What does John 19:26 say? You know what? We can find out.
I don't know.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I got my Bible. This was my Bible that was given to me when I was in seminary. Let's see. John, what
I
was the
lay it
first
at your
one?
feet because now you've got him going.
John 13.
yeah, thanks, Philip. We appreciate it. We were having a constructive conversation.
Yeah, constructive.
But now we're going into theological. We're going into a Bible study.
I could ignore
Everybody pray.
I
could
say,
ignore Philip.
I say, why is that lad piling all those faggots at his feet? What's he doing?
He's welcome to his opinion, and he can stay.
Are we lighting a pyre?
But I would certainly like you
Bring out the
to have
goat.
your facts straight. Let's just take the first verse you listed.
There's a
John
sacrifice.
13, what was it? 13:23. First of all, you've got the context of the passage is Jesus predicting his betrayal. It starts in verse 18. What does he say? He says, I'm not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen. But this is to fulfill the scripture. He who shares my bread has lifted up his heel against me. I'm telling you now before it happens.
I never eat the
so
heel.
that when shut it. Let me finish the passage. Jesus Christ. I'm telling you now. I'll here. Oh gosh, where did Dave go?
Hi.
There he is.
Hey, that's
I'm
usually
telling you
me.
now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you'll believe that I am he. I tell you the truth. Whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. And verse 21, we're getting up to 23. He says, after he said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, I tell you the truth, one of you is going to betray me. His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which one of them he meant. Then verse 23, one of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned to his disciple and said, ask him which one he means. And leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it? Okay, so you're trying to bolster your case that Peter had something against John because Peter said, John, you're his bud, ask him. And so what does John do? Go, shut up. No, he doesn't. He goes, okay, I'll ask him. Hey, Jesus, what is that? It says he leans back and he goes, so tell me, are you talking about me? Who is it? And it says leaning back against Jesus. What does that mean? I hope you're not trying to imply something sexual out of that. A bunch of guys sitting at dinner.
Hey, Scotty, I have something I'd like to get your opinion on the
Please
Bible.
do, and I'm out of time, but let's go.
So, we've both studied and participated in the whole learning of the Bible and the rituals and the whole theology of it. And I was thinking the other day that I was trying to figure out how to describe the Bible.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, as we're seeing right here, real time, there's a lot of disagreement on interpretation. There's, I don't know how many delineations there are in Christianity alone, but you go everywhere from Pentecostal, where I was, all the way to the fundamentalists and everybody in between. They all read the same book and interpret it differently, right? So I thought, there's got to be a simple way to define the Bible. And right now I'm working on these 3 points. One, you look at it from a historical perspective. Mm-hmm. That is a historical document for the most part. 2, is it's about people and relationships.
Yep.
Okay. It's about on the historical side, I'm thinking more of along the lines of places and time. And then people, it's the entities, whether it's the angry, pissed off God of the Old Testament or this holy new dude that apparently did some ayahuasca or something and showed up in the New Testament. But you have these completely different personalities. And then you have all these people, all these kings and prophets and doers and writers and all this other stuff. And then the third thing, which is the most important thing, in my opinion, is the spiritual teachings. It's the concepts of how to engage with one another, how to live
So
your
far,
life.
I'm with you.
Okay. To me, that's all the Bible is. It's a sort of historical document that we keep finding things that kind of, well, we found Jericho. We found, different sites. And then it's all these people with all these relationships and all this shit. And
which gives us examples of how to behave amongst each other.
Which is then where the spiritual teachings come in. Now, the spiritual teachings are, to me, the most important part and the most suppressed by those who have taken control of this book. The fact that when they talk about, love your neighbors, you love yourself. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Do people even know what love, going back to our definitions, all the different delineations of love? What is it to love oneself? What is that definition of love? And it seems to be the most important teaching, at least in the New Testament. But the spiritual aspects, and this goes into your other area of study in paranormal. Okay, there's a shitload of what could be easily classified as paranormal events throughout the both Old and New Testament. There's all kinds of shit that you go, well, wait a minute, that ain't supposed to happen. Turning wine into water into wine, raising the dead, doing all these other things. But those are discounted and suppressed by those who manage the book.
Yes.
So to me, my whole view of the whole Christianity thing is that it's based on those three things out of one book, some of which can be verified, most of it can't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about teachings, which are the more important thing. And those teachings are the exact things that have been suppressed.
Exactly. I think you got a lot of things suppressed in the Bible.
So
now,
that's my thesis on the Bible. I wanted to get your read on that.
I will say this, Philip, no matter what you're saying, I don't think the talking about John loving Jesus and Jesus loving John as like his bestie, his BFF, that's not a statement of homosexuality. That's not what the Bible's doing there.
I agree.
And yes, it does say that he leaned back on him. If you look at the text, if you look at the King James Bible, you're going to get something else. It said, the disciple whom Jesus loved was reclining next to him. And then it says, leaning back against Jesus, he asked him. Now, this is the NIV version. This is not the King James version. King James version is going to give you something very different. What you got to do is go back to the Koine Greek. Philip, if you're going to use that as an argument, go study what the Greek passage says in the Greek text, and then you'll find out what John was doing. Don't try to make it fit your argument. Make the argument fit the facts.
Well, but that's what they're doing with Trump to bring everything full circle. They've got the man. They'll make the crimes fit the man.
Yeah, they make the crimes fit the man.
That's right.
Prayer for your enemy means contemplative prayer, where we try to put ourselves in our enemy's proverbial shoes, Scotty Roberts, like Jesus attempted when talking about the Samaritan man. Sure, I agree with that. Totally different topic, though. But I agree with that.
So back to politics, it seems like one side is trying to screw the other.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there's a whole lot of screwing going on between the two of them, in not only at each other, but internally. And there seems to be more screwing going on the left amongst themselves. I think there's a lot of what do they call it? Incest. There's a whole bunch of incest on the left. And at current course of speed, there's not going to be any of them left, because the more people that are oriented in outside of straight are not most likely going to have kids. They are not apparently going to be very successful because they're all angry right now. and they've pushed men down to the point where, hell, there's studies coming out all over the place. Men are like, I don't know about this marriage thing. I don't, and it's even gone to where they're thinking about, I don't want to get in a relationship with some of these angry women because I like to keep my parts. I don't want to be Bobbit, you know?
Yep.
So I think that's, again, a part of the plan. You've got to let these people play themselves out because they will kill themselves off. They're eating themselves from within. They're killing themselves off. So the next gen, we may have some leftovers from the idiots who did have kids and then pump this crap into their head, but we can change them around too. We can get just by teaching them how to think instead of what to think.
Statistically, better than 90% of all homosexuals come from heterosexual relationships.
Statistically, yes.
And I do have to say, when I found out what a lesbian was decades ago, I realized
You're like you wanted to be one.
Yeah.
I was one. I are one.
I am one. And Matthew Sainsbury, you got a point there. The painting of Jesus and the 12 sitting at a table in art is grossly inaccurate to the first century. Yeah, they all sat on cushions and reclined against each other. That's the way they all sat.
Have you ever been to a Ethiopian dinner or restaurant? It's much more like that.
Or Sufi or Indian. Yeah, you sit on the floor.
Philip
you
Blair,
lean.
come on the show. We'll talk about it. Not tonight because we're done. But I'll talk about it. We'll do. You'll happily do the good homework you've given, and I appreciate you not being angry. I'm not angry with you. I'm angry. It angers me when, because I've seen so much of it, when factoids are used without making sure those factoids are actually factual. To make an argument, you don't build an argument.
I'll be Uncle Dave.
You can't build an argument off of loose facts.
I'll referee.
What's that?
I'll referee.
You
put on a striped shirt. I'll call fouls, balls, and strikes.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
All right.
I think
Goodbye.
that's all we got.
Love y'all.
Well, this has been very stimulating.
It has.
My extremities are titillated.
What'd you say? What'd you call it?
I have to go. My brand new big screen has gone to a black screen and it won't come back on, and I don't know why.
There you go.
Not even a month old.
What didn't you mean, Susie Q? I missed something. Oh, well. Anyway, Philip, thanks for stating your mind. Thanks for letting me pick on you because you're wrong. And, see you, Uncle Dave. And Celtic Wolf, thank you for coming in and supporting Philip. He needed some support there. It's always good to have support when your facts are not right. So, Philip, it'd be wonderful. If you want to come in and do a little homework, come in, study those passages. Strong's, that's pretty good. Strong's Concordance, it's just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing. And so, no, John did not lay his head into Jesus' lap or whatever you're thinking it said. It meant they were reclining, and he leaned back against him and asked something.
But he did wash his feet.
He did wash his feet. Yep. Jesus
I like
washed all their feet.
Wash. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I love a good footsie.
Me too. Professor, get out of here. Good to have you.
I'm out of here. Peace, brother. Thanks.
Let's do it again. Have a good night.
You too.
I love you, brother. Actually, 90% of humans are bisexual when scientifically studied. Well, I don't know. I think maybe you're talking biologically. You're not talking by choice. You're not talking by political movement or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know for a fact. I know I'm not. Maybe I fall into the 10%. Nothing about a man's hairy ass that intrigues me. So, and we'll leave it at that tonight. Folks, thanks for being here. Everybody that was here, thanks for being here. It made it a fun, stimulating evening of conversation. We shall do this again. Friday night, remember, is Ghost Night. We're going to talk about ghosts and the paranormal on Friday night. And so come on ready for that. No show tomorrow night. And after that, we go day by day. So thanks for being here. And what did I want to say? I think that's it. I think we're done. So thanks for being here. All of you, live long and prosper.